Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the exciting Vaughn Manor, where it's another action-packed adventure, halls of adventure, that is. So, another book haul today, because Roger over there just won't stop buying books. Well, he's got piles of gold in his tomb. I guess if he wants to buy a ton of books, it's all right. So, what books have found their way to the manor this week? We got a few things in this week. Let's see. Let's start with the comics, because I always start with the comics that have managed to find their way into the manor. Only one comic book managed to find its way into the manor this week, and that would be an epic collection. This is the Mighty Thor Epic Collection, War of the Gods. This is Volume 8. This has the Thor comic book from 1975 to 1977. So these were some good years for Thor. This is when Len Wein was writing the book, the creator or co-creator of Swamp Thing, and so many other great characters. Len Wein, and he was doing the stories here, and the artwork is by probably my favorite comic book artist. If I have to choose one, it would be John Buscema. I love John Buscema. I mean, the artwork is just fantastic. It always is when John Buscema does it, almost always. But I look through this. I'm anxious to read this one. This one's going to be good. So I got that. And then I got some other books in. Let's see what I got. Okay, this one looks pretty cool. This is Best New Horror #1. This isn't really new anymore. This is a reprint. This is the 25th anniversary edition of Best New Horror, which was edited by Stephen Jones and Ramsey Campbell. Best New Horror. And I was looking through it, and it's got some interesting stuff. I guess this originally was published in 1989. It has a Ramsey Campbell story in it. Has a Kim Newman story in it. Has Thomas Ligotti is in this one. Brian Lumley is in here. Richard Lehman is in here. Wow, a Richard Lehman story. This should be extra fun. So Best New Horror #1. And I love the cover. That's pretty great. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this. I love horror anthologies. I just love them. So this was a nice thing to get. So I got that. This next book you've seen if you watched my announcement video for June on the Range. You're not going to want to miss June on the Range, a whole month of Western fiction. But I knew I wanted to read this book, but I didn't have this book, shockingly enough. Even more shocking, I've never read it, and that would be Lonesome Dove. The last week of June, probably the tail end of the last week of June, I'm going to be starting this. This is going to be the last thing I read, and then I'll be reading this probably for a couple weeks of July as well, because it's big. It's big. And AJ Dunn apparently is going to read this too, along with me. So that'll be fun. It's like a buddy read. I don't normally do that. So that'll be fun. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, whose books I have not read at all. So I'm definitely going to be reading that one. All right. So this next one I got in one of those little free libraries, and they almost never have anything I'd want to read. And this one I'm just kind of like, maybe I'll read it someday. Who knows? This is by Peter Robinson, In a Dry Season, a novel of suspense. And that's the only reason I picked it up. Apparently, it's from a series. It's from the Inspector Banks series, which I don't know anything about. I've never read an Inspector Banks book. Have any of you guys read an Inspector Banks book? I don't know if this guy's any good. I know this is a terrible cover. This cover is everything I hate about modern covers, where where modern covers either have the author's name or the title real huge, and that takes up most of the cover real estate, and just some random image, and it's a dry season, so they added the dry effects there, which I guess they thought they were being clever. I could have come up with this in 10 minutes. This would take me less than 10 minutes to do, this cover design. So if I can do it in less than 10 minutes, it sucks, okay? Just letting you know. it sucks if I can do it. So, come on, publishers, do better. I've never read Peter Robinson's books before, but I can tell you, he wrote this whole book. He deserves a better cover than this. Come on. I guess people buy these books anyway, even with the crappy covers. That's sad. Okay, let's move on to the more vintagey stuff, because I got a bunch of vintagey stuff this week. Shocking, I know. Shocking. So last week, you might have seen my trashy Blade double. This week, I've got another trashy novel that looks like it escaped from Criminali's house. This is Endworld double, and it had a sticker that somebody tore off right over our man Blade's face, because this is a book with 2 more adventures of Blade. Same writer as the Blade double, David Robbins. So these are 2 more adventures with the same character, Capital Run and New York Run. So, I don't know. But the New York Run sounds great. After the nuclear holocaust, New York City became a zombie-ridden chaos where no sane man would willingly go. But Blade and his men had to venture into the fallen metropolis. For a renowned scientist claimed the solution to the world's food shortage lay hidden beneath the city, and he needed them to find it. If the warriors succeeded in their quest, there would be shouts of joy. If they failed, the world would die without a whimper. Who wouldn't want to read that? That sounds fantastic. So, I got this for August, for Garb August. Garb August is going to be a month devoted to trash, a reading event created by Criminali and Steve Donahue. I'm going to be reading a lot of trash, and this is going to be one of the books I read during that trashy month. So, there's that. Also, I got a bunch of science fiction stuff, so let's take a look through that. A few science fiction books here. This is a Robert Sheckley. This is Shards of Space. And when I saw this, I didn't recognize the cover, and I was trying to remember if I have this in another edition. I don't know, but I know I don't have this edition, which is a good enough reason to pick it up for the Vault of Ancient Science Fiction. So, Shards of Space by Robert Sheckley. Shards of Space. The next one is World's Best Science Fiction 3rd Series, Top Science Fiction Adventures, and it has a bunch of science fiction writers there. But the cool thing about this is that it has a Michael Moorcock story called Behold the Man, which is kind of a big deal Michael Moorcock story, and it's hiding in the middle of this book. So, yeah, I was happy to get this, World's Best Science Fiction 3rd Series. I probably have that story someplace else, but I can't remember where, so had to get it just in case. Plus, I bet a lot of these other stories are pretty darn good. This next one made me laugh. This is The Micronauts, a novel of the ultimate frontier, the most fantastic adventure of the century. There used to be a line of toys when I was a kid called the Micronauts. No relation, I'm sure. And I might actually have another copy of the Micronauts hiding somewhere, but just in case I don't, I got it. Of course I did. How can I say no to this? You can't. You can't say no to the Micronauts. Have to get it. Now this next thing, when I first saw it, I was confused because it's Ray Bradbury, Timeless Stories for Today and Tomorrow, and I'm like, I don't have that book. How can there be a Ray Bradbury book that I don't have and don't recognize? It turns out it's an anthology, and that's why I don't recognize it and don't have it. It's an anthology that was edited by Ray Bradbury. And they're all stories in the Ray Bradbury tradition, even though some of them were written before Ray Bradbury wrote. It's an interesting lineup of stories in this. This is billed as science fiction, although it's really not. There's a bunch of different kinds of stories in here. There is Housing Problem by Henry Kuttner. But there's also Saint Katie the Virgin by John Steinbeck. This also has The Penal Colony by Kafka. It has a few interesting choices in this book. So it's an anthology I had to pick up, of course. I mean, of course I did. So, yeah. Ray Bradbury's anthology, Timeless Stories for Today and Tomorrow. I was kind of happy to find it, actually. It's fun to find things you hadn't heard of or have forgotten about, which might be the case. Now, this is by Cordwainer Smith, and every time I find a Cordwainer Smith book I don't have, I pick it up right away. And this is Quest of the Three Worlds by Cordwainer Smith. And it's kind of a cool old Ace edition. Cordwainer Smith, really good science fiction writer. I don't know that anybody knows about Cordwainer Smith anymore, except for the diehard science fiction aficionados. You know, science fiction fans who like the old-timey stuff know Cordwainer Smith. But I'm not sure how well he's known now. I don't know if any of his old books are being reprinted in new editions. Probably not. Sad, but Cordwainer Smith is cool, and you can find Cordwainer Smith books on the ebook on the Kindle. You know, that's one place you can find some of this old stuff, even if it's not being reprinted in physical copies. Very often you could find the old books on Kindle nowadays. Not always, but often. This is Hal Clement, Through the Eye of a Needle. Through the Eye of the Needle, which looks like an underwater science fiction adventure. I don't know. I've never read this book, Through the Eye of a Needle by Hal Clement, so I had to pick it up, of course. It looks interesting at the very least. Have any of you read this book? Let me know if you have. This is another book that I couldn't remember whether I had, but I know I don't have this edition. At least I'm fairly sure. This is Behind the Walls of Terra, which I should have if I don't. This is Philip Jose Farmer, Behind the Walls of Terra. This is one of his better-known books, and I know I don't have this edition, and this edition's in pretty fair shape, actually. So, yeah, I was glad to get it. Glad to pick this one up. Philip Jose Farmer. This next one's a Frederick Fole, Digits and Dastards. Digits and Dastards by Frederick Fole. This is not a book I have read by Frederick Fole, so I had to get Digits and Dastards. I think it's a collection of short stories. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it is. It's a collection of short stories, which is why I don't have it, although I might have read some of the stories. But had to pick it up. Of course I did. Here's a John Brunner book. I've been getting a lot of John Brunner. I've been picking up a lot of John Brunner's books. This is Age of Miracles. Age of Miracles. By John Brunner. Interesting old-timey cover there. Age of Miracles. This, like I said about horror anthologies, this is billed as science fiction on the sides, but it's actually Fiends and Creatures. Fiends and Creatures, the greatest terror tales of all time, by Ray Bradbury, Lord Dunsany, Tennessee Williams, Robert Bloch, Fritz Leiber Jr., and M.R. James, and 10 others. Of course I picked it up like right away. First of all, the title is Fiends and Creatures, so of course I picked it up. It does have the 3 Infernal Jokes by Lord Dunsany in here. Has Crescendo by Richard Matheson. Has a Captain Murderer by Charles Dickens. So there's some interesting things in this book. Yeah. It doesn't seem to have any Lovecraft, which kind of surprises me. Looks pretty cool, though. I was happy to get that one. A couple books left. Of course, I saved my favorite book of the haul for last, like I always do. This is not my favorite book of the haul, but the cover made me laugh. If the cover makes me laugh hard enough, I get it. And that's this one. This is Gordon R. Dickson, None But Man, Ultimatum from the Aliens. And this made me laugh because I think they're supposed to be fighting, but they look like they're dancing. They look like they're having a nice romantic dance in this book. None but man. None but man. So yeah, I picked this up, and I will read it eventually, probably when I'm retired. When I'm retired, I plan on like just totally going through the vault of ancient science fiction, which I will need an extra couple vaults for by the time I'm retired, because that's not going to be till I'm 70 something probably. So yeah, None But Man. Excuse my tangent. Now this next one is my favorite book of the bunch, and I got this because I recently read Danse Macabre by Stephen King, and he reminded me in that book that I do not have this book, or at least I didn't have this book, and I needed a copy of this book, and that would be this one, Donovan's Brain. Now this is by Kurt Soidmak, and so this is this is a book Stephen King talked a lot about in Danse Macabre, and it sounds like a pretty entertaining book, Donovan's Brain. And I've been hearing about this book on and off forever. And this is such a great cover for Donovan's Brain. I love this cover. This is an awesome cover. Makes your blood run cold, says the Baltimore Sun. This was printed before Stephen King existed as a published writer, so there's no Stephen King blurb on this. But trust me, newer editions of this would have Stephen King on it, I'm sure. Are there newer editions of Donovan's Brain? Is this still being published? I don't know, but I was happy to get this one. So that is it for the haul this week. Now, next week, I'm on vacation, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time at the Rustic Fawn Lodge. So if I have a book haul next week, it'll probably be late next week. It'll be either early or late, and I'm thinking it would be late. So I actually don't know if we're going to have a Halls of Adventure next week. We'll see. If not, I'll definitely have one the week after. We'll see, my friends. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time. Bye now.